Hey everybody, welcome back to Sacred Health. I'm Carolyn, and today we get to interview Kesley Tweed. Kesley is a spiritual guide, astrologer, Reiki master, Gallup certified strengths coach, neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and ascension coach. She's a student of the Tony Robbins Leadership Mastery Programming, the co-founder of a movement called Elevate, co-host of the KT in the DM relationship podcast, and has coached hundreds to personal transformations. She has studied with leading experts in healing the body, the mind, and soul. She spent time in Costa Rica, New Zealand, Thailand, Bali, Australia, San Diego, Sedona, and other spiritual centers. And she uses tools like astrology, Reiki energy healing, and meditation to help others journey deep within themselves to live the ascended life. Hi.
Hello, thank you for that. And thank
Yeah,
you
you're
for having
welcome.
me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. So I guess we could just start off with you telling the listeners about what got you started in your spiritual journey.
Well, that's a great question. Life got me started, right? I think for many of us who end up on a spiritual journey, it's something that happens in our life that sort of triggers that awakening process. And for me, it was sort of a slow awakening, but really, if I go back several years, I went through a divorce when I was in my late 20s. And that really threw me for a loop, because like many of us who go through a situation like that, you sort of have a life that's planned for you or that you have in your mind. And one day you sort of wake up and realize that, wow, the life I had planned is not the life I am going to be living. I've got to find myself. I've got to figure out where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do and who I really am. And so I actually went through a big move. I moved to Houston, Texas from a smaller city in North Dakota. And I had grown up in North Dakota. I'm from a very small town. And so that was sort of a big awakening, maybe not so much a spiritual awakening, but putting myself in a brand new environment, newly divorced. I was in the corporate space at the time. So I was like working like crazy. My whole soul existence became focused on I'm going to climb the corporate ladder. I'm going to become a manager and a VP, and I'm going to go all the way. And that just became like it for me. And I was going through a lot of stress, right? And anxiety and emotions because I hadn't actually healed from that divorce. So I was throwing myself into work. I was running marathons. I was doing fitness competitions. I was dating. I was doing anything to try to avoid and outrun those feelings that I had stuffed down so deeply. And I started to get into like doing fitness competition. So I know you're in holistic health. So I come from sort of a health background. I've always been into, working out and eating healthy and all those sorts of things. But so I got really into that for a while. And my coach actually suggested that I start meditating and that I get into personal development. And the meditation was what really broke it open for me, because I remember I was going through transcendental meditation, like the initiation process for that. And the very first session that I did with my guide and my teacher, I went into the meditation and I did not think I had gone very deep at all. I actually thought that I was like hearing things outside. And, I had this idea of meditation that it's like you're like suddenly in an alternate reality and you're like up there floating around with angels and God. And like, that's not what I saw. So I thought to myself, like, I wasn't meditating. Well, I got done with the meditation and she looked at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, ah. And then I started to feel something I'd never felt before. I was feeling anger. I'd never allowed myself to feel anger before. I'd never allowed myself, there were so many emotions that I didn't allow myself to feel before I went through my spiritual awakening. And she was like, "I'm going to leave you alone for a couple of minutes." And I laid on the floor. I cried my eyes out. I went through like a whole box of tissues. And it was like all of those emotions, all of those limiting beliefs, all of those stories, all of that sadness, all the things I had stuffed down and refused to look at and refused to heal and didn't even know how, right? Didn't have the tools at the time to even know how to move through it. It all came up. And that was the beginning of the spiritual awakening. And over the course of time, I got deeper and deeper into meditation and personal development and later Reiki and astrology. And it was like, once I was willing to go there, all the tools just sort of showed themselves to me, and the right teachers showed themselves to me. And the next thing I knew, I was leaving my corporate job to become a coach. I wanted to travel the world. I sold everything that I had, and I literally just traveled around for, well, I lived without a like true home for 2 years, but the first stint was like 3 months in some of the places you mentioned in the introduction. And that's when it really started to crack open, because I was alone. I was by myself. I had to sit with my thoughts, and I was meditating every day, and everything just sort of, spiraled for a while. But then on the other side of all that was just this unbelievable like light and beauty and purpose. And I'm so grateful for it, but man, it was kind of rough in the process. I'm not gonna lie. So that
Yeah.
was kind of a long story, but it's kind of hard to really break down, because the spiritual process, the spiritual awakening process, it's intense, and it can, it kind of, it's not always, sometimes I think people think the awakening happens in like one moment, and it's not always one moment. It's sometimes those moments that start to unravel things, and we start to unpack things. And that's really more what the spiritual awakening is like for many of us, including myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me too. Of like, it's like you could look back and be like, okay, that was an
Mhm.
awakening, like all that. But as you're
Mhm.
going through it, it's just like all these
Yes.
moments of
Li- Life.
just, yeah.
Of life, right? Like, so, right. And I didn't even get into like some of the other pieces, because there's so many life moments that were like mini awakenings that were all part of the bigger awakening. Yeah.
Mhm. And it's hard, I think, while you're in it to have the optimism that it's like
Mhm.
there's a way out, there's a side like past all that. It's usually, after the fact and you're like, okay.
I can so relate to that. In fact, I was literally just before we got on this podcast thinking about this day where I was like in the heart of it, like in the hardest part, like I would call it the dark night of the soul, right? And I was on a Zoom call with my Reiki teacher, like just full on, once again, ugly crying. And I was like, when is it gonna end? And she just smiled, and she's like, it's all gonna be worth it. It's all gonna be worth it. And it is now, but yeah, when you're going through it takes other people to like reassure you sometimes and tell you like, hey, it's all going to be okay, and you're going to get through this, and you're going to be grateful for it. And on the other side, you're going to have so much more confidence, and you're going to know who you are, and you're going to have purpose, and you're going to be, better equipped for your relationships and love and all these things. Like, I think we need to do a better job of sort of reassuring one another, those of us who are on the other side of that, that like, hey, like there's something beautiful waiting for you on the other side.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Can you explain what a dark night of the soul is?
Hmm. Yeah, the dark night of the soul is, it's kind of the extreme of the spiritual awakening, where you are essentially in this place. I like to describe it as like, imagine that you are a seed and you are under the ground, right? And it's just dark, and you're just this little seed, but you haven't sprouted any roots yet. You haven't, come out to see the light yet. It's literally that time where you sort of like let everything go, or maybe everything's fallen apart. For some people, it happens when maybe they lose a relationship, or they lose a loved one, or they lose a job. Something happens where it's like, it's that darkness, and you can't see that way out. And everywhere you look, it just feels like more darkness. That is the dark night of the soul. But really what it is you being replanted, you being rebirthed, you thinking of yourself like that little seed of like, yeah, it's dark now, but all I need to do is figure out how to root myself, to grow roots. And that's really what happens. And I think about that now, and I'm like, that's really what I was doing during my spiritual awakening in that dark night of the soul. Is I had been uprooted. The previous version of me was no longer. I realized that was not going to work. I remember when I was like in the corporate world and stressed every day, and I was like thinking to myself one day after work, like, I cannot go on like this for the next 30 years, 40 years, whatever is left in my career. I won't do it. And it was like I had to uproot myself and replant myself. And so that's how I would probably most easily describe the dark night of the soul.
Mhm. That's a great visual. I'm like a visual person, so that made a lot of sense to me. So like what if you're in it and like your your headspace is like I'm stuck. This is forever. Like there's no hope. You're just like so in it that it's really difficult to see anything outside of that.
Yes.
What could you
Yes.
say to someone in that space?
Well, I would say from someone who's on the other side, trust me. That's exactly what my Reiki teacher said to me. Like, trust me, there's something beautiful for you and it will be worth it. I would highly encourage, anyone who's out there and going through this, do not go through it alone. I do not know where I would be or what it would have been like had I not had my Reiki teacher, had I not had my astrology teacher. There's this amazing man that I worked with during the time. His name's Dr. Lee. I talk about in my book. He was like my love teacher. Like I had these people who showed up for me. And it's like, maybe it doesn't have to be a whole team of people, but find one person, find one mentor,
Mhm.
find someone who can continue to reassure you and help you see. Because when we're in that space, we don't see things clearly, right? When we're in that space of darkness and you're that seed and you're planted and you're under the ground, you literally can't see the light. You don't have access to the light. So it takes a team of people or a community or a person most of the time to help us through that. The other thing that I would say is the one of the biggest blessings of the dark night of the soul and the awakening is you will develop your personal connection with spirit or God or the universe or whatever terminology you choose to use. I remember days in many moments of my spiritual awakening where, your coach or your healer or your teacher is not available all the time. What do you do in those moments? I remember getting on my knees, sitting beside my bed, and literally like praying to the universe, like, help me. I don't know what else to do. Like, please help me, and really going deep into your spiritual practices. For me, I went like through myself all the way into meditation, to Reiki, like doing a lot of self Reiki, Akashic records. I read a book and started reading my own Akashic records, astrology, and like that, like for me, and I think for a lot of people, your soul gifts will open up for you during your spiritual awakening through what you use to heal yourself. The medicine you give yourself is the medicine that you will then share with other people. And so during that spiritual awakening, we're cultivating those gifts. Like I didn't know what my soul gifts were until I went through my awakening, and I had to dig deep and I had to find tools and I had to find gifts and I had to find ways to help myself when there wasn't anyone else to help me. So I would say, those three things. The other thing that I would say is that I think oftentimes in the spiritual community, we forget about the importance of taking care of our physical body. We talk a lot about the mind and we talk a lot about the spirit. But what you eat and moving your body, like for me, I've always been into like working out and lifting weights. And so that was like my one thing that would help ground me and help like give me that extra boost. I would go to the gym or like, eat some healthy food, eat fruits, eat vegetables, like eat living food. I do not think that we can underestimate that. So yeah, I would say number one, find a mentor. Number two, develop your own personal relationship with spirit. Number three, use it as a time to develop your own soul gifts. And number four, make sure you're also taking care of your physical body. If you do those four things, sure, I could think of plenty more, but that would be a great foundation for you to get through this time.
That's good. That's good stuff. Because that's like, I'm like, I don't know if you can like see it in my face. I'm like calculating everything because it's like, it's very relevant. So I'm like trying to
Yes.
just process it all. So what would you say, okay, if someone is experiencing someone else going through
Mhm.
this,
Mhm.
so they're just kind of there and they're trying
Yeah.
to be supportive or
Mhm.
like, you know, to be like a source of encouragement, but it's like there's
Yes.
a lot of resistance. How can somebody do that? How can they be supportive if,
Support.
the other person, like, they don't know what's going to help or they don't know what will be the support they need? Does that make sense? Sorry. And I
Yeah.
thought my kid was coming in, so I was like listening. I like lost what I was
No,
saying,
it
but
it makes it makes total sense. It makes total sense because, although my spiritual awakening was many years ago, and my husband as well went through his spiritual awakening many years ago, go through a lot of mini awakenings. So I'm even thinking about like how do we hold space for one another during those times? And there's a couple of different things. One is holding, like never underestimate the power of holding space. Like for me, I know space being held for me is literally like just a hug or holding me or listening, just being present for me. And I think sometimes we feel like we have to have all the answers. And when it comes to our spiritual awakening, it's very personal. And so another person's probably not going to have all the answers for you. So don't feel like, as that support system for someone else, that you have to have all the answers, but holding space, encouraging, reminding them of how amazing they are and like all the things that they, the strength that they've had up to this point in life. I think that's so powerful. The other thing that I think we also need to keep in mind is some people need space. Some people need that time and that physical space to go through things and sit with things. One of the biggest things I hear from clients and people that I talk to is like, there's just so many things I have to do in life, and there's all these people that depend on me, and I literally just wish I could have solitude and like be alone and not have anyone bother me. So sometimes, like, as a spouse or as a friend or as a whoever you are in that person's life, sometimes giving them and not pushing them, not like forcing them, like, what's wrong with you? Like, tell me, because we don't always have the words either for what's going on during our
Mhm.
spiritual awakening. So those are a few things that I think about. Yeah, those are the best things I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more, but I think those are what's meaningful to me.
Yeah, those are great, great tips. Um, yeah, definitely. Okay, I keep giggling to myself because there have been so many synchronicities like the past few days of different themes happening.
Mhm.
So like it's just all very strong right now. So,
Astrology, astrology.
so
Usually when
when I
that
look
happens, I'm
like
like, there's
mind
something in the
boggled,
trend. No, it's
yeah, I'm
okay.
like mind boggled a little bit. Okay.
It's
So,
okay. I can feel you absorbing it. I can feel you taking it in. And like, that feels really good to speak to someone who's like really listening. And I
oh,
appreciate that.
okay. I'm glad
Hmm.
that's cool. You because I feel like okay, you know the meme or like the gif of like the lady with like math equations all around her and she looks super confused.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like in my mind, like trying to
No.
put it all together.
No, I feel you like genuinely like absorbing it and taking it in. So
Okay.
it's really fun to share when you feel like someone's like genuinely processing it. So thank
Oh,
you for that.
okay. Well, thank you too for for saying it because I
Mhm.
need to hear that. Okay, so backtracking to the meditating. So,
Mhm.
okay, like, can you explain what transcendental meditation is compared to other types, or is
Yes,
it all like
yes.
kind of the same?
What I've found is a lot of it does start to blend together. And I wouldn't say that I'm an avid or by the book practitioner of transcendental meditation now, but essentially what it is you get a personal mantra and you meditate twice a day for 20 minutes a day. So that's kind of just the basics of transcendental meditation. But since that time, I've studied with monks. I've studied like different types of meditations. I've studied NLP, which I now bring into my meditation, Akashic Records. Like there's all these different things. And so now I'm more of a freestyler when it comes to
Mhm.
my meditation practice. But there are a lot of similarities when it comes right down to it. I would say the most common denominator. So I did study in India at a yoga ashram there for about 2 weeks, and I was shocked about this, but I've noticed this is the common thread. It's the breath and the power of the breath. And you don't have to be a breath work practitioner or have, specific breath work patterns or things that you do, just using the breath to cleanse yourself. I often get asked the question, how do I clear my energy? And I'm like, the simplest way to clear your energy is literally to just take a deep breath and acknowledge how powerful that tool is, just to be able to breathe in new life force, to breathe in new energy and exhale. And I like to even visualize like breathing in white light, like beautiful cleansing energy, and exhaling like the gray, the dark, the heavy, like let it go. So the breath, I would say, is where they kind of all come together, but breath even expands well beyond meditation.
That's great. Would you
Mhm.
mind sharing that visualization really fast?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I could do that. So if I were going to like, think about cleansing or clearing my energy, I like to close my eyes, but you don't even have to close your eyes. And just imagine that you are breathing in through your nose, white light, vibrant white light, and it feels so nourishing and cooling as it comes into your body. And then you're just going to imagine that you are exhaling or breathing out gray, heavy energy. And you can even take that a step deeper by just tuning into your body and noticing if there's any tightness or heaviness in any certain area of your body. And you can imagine that you're breathing in that white light to that area of the body. And you can even see that gray energy that might be sitting in that space. And on the exhale, imagine that gray energy is leaving. And essentially, you would just repeat that process until you feel light and vibrant and relaxed. And that's it.
That was cool.
It's so powerful, right?
Mhm.
And so simple. So simple. I'll give you another quick meditation hack. So this is one of the things that I learned in India, that there are specific points on the body that if you relax those points, you will immediately flip from that stressed out fight or flight state to a peaceful rest and digest, relaxed state. So those points are the base of the spine, the neck and the shoulders, right? So thinking about relaxing those, relax your jaw, relax the corners of your eyes and your forehead. And if you just relax those spaces, right? Even when you start to go into your meditation, it's like, bam, you just drop in like that, because those are the key places that we hold stress in our bodies. Especially I hear people a lot, neck and shoulders, the jaw, that's the thing is I didn't realize how much tension I was holding in my jaw. And a lot of people, our foreheads, right? We're wrinkle up our foreheads. And one of the teachers there would say a wrinkled forehead is a wrinkled mind. So if you're carrying a lot of stress, if you're wrinkling your forehead, it's not because you're aging, it's because you got a lot of stuff in your mind that you need to empty out, that you need to let go of, that you need to sort through and process. So those are a couple of easy tips that people can use for meditation.
Yeah, those are great. I love that visualization. And to the relaxing different points. I remember in middle school, so my PE, this is the one time anything like this was ever taught, and I don't think he at the time didn't realize it was a mind body thing, but it was we were sitting there, I don't know why, we were just in the gym, for some reason we weren't playing a game or something, so he was trying to think of stuff for us to do, and he's like, okay, everyone sit, and then start tensing up, tense everything. Sit there, sit cross-legged, tense everything for however long he counted for, and then let it go. And I was like, that's the most relaxed I've ever felt in my life.
Yes, that
And
is so
it was
true.
so cool. So I
That is
wonder
so true.
too. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's so true. And I'm thinking back to even during my time in India, that was one of the things that we would do. We would actually do that tensing up. And I hadn't thought about that in so many years. Wow, that's your gym teacher. Sounds like he was way ahead of his time.
Yeah. It's just so funny because that's the one thing, spirit, as far as spiritual things or anything with that type of thinking was not really discussed where I grew up. But yeah, I don't know where that came from, but I was it works,
Wow,
so
it
try it, I would
does.
say.
It absolutely does. Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because I think about that all the time, all these useful tools, like meditation or how to relax our body. We don't typically learn that in school, but those are the things we need to be learning. So, I laugh because I'm like, man, my daughter, she's gonna know these things as a baby, whereas it was for many of us, we learned them much later in life, but everything in divine timing,
Yeah,
everything in divine
exactly.
timing.
And I wonder if someone could go through, well, I don't really know how you would tense and relax your spine unless you
Yeah,
massaged it with your hands, but
yeah,
going
you'd
through
have to
each thing,
yeah, you'd have to your whole glutes and everything you'd probably have to tense all of that. But yeah, just your whole body even, your whole body. That's powerful. That's a good tip for people.
Yeah. And okay, now I'm making connections. Okay, so I just did an interview yesterday, 2 days
Mhm.
ago, with somebody else about energy work, and she was saying she likes getting people in the receiving mode with gratitudes before doing Reiki on them, right? So then I
Mm.
just had the thought of like, if someone were to do this full body tense and then
Mhm.
relax before any type of spiritual practice, would that, in a
Yes.
sense, get them into like more of a receiving
I
mode?
think that it absolutely would. I think that it absolutely would. I think that it's something with the life force, right? It's like you get when you tense up. I actually went through sort of a near-death experience a couple of years ago and was losing a lot of blood. And they had me do that same thing where they had me tense up like my whole body, right? To keep what blood was in me and to keep everything flowing in that life force. So it's almost like it activates your life force and then it puts you in that like relaxed state. So it sort of it's almost like that duality, right? Where it's like activating or fight like the hot and the cool, the hot and the cooling, those
Mm-hmm.
opposites. So yeah, I think it would definitely put you in a receptive mode. Definitely.
I'm
I'll have
gonna
to
have to try
practice with
that.
that. We're gonna have to stay in touch and
Yeah,
try that and see how it works for us.
definitely. Because
Yeah.
I just like, felt like all these things were clicking in my mind that I
Yes.
just, yeah,
Yes.
that was really cool. I guess shifting gears a little bit. So in your book, which by the way, everybody, she wrote a book. So this is like all about her book, The Ascended Life. So
Yes.
in your book, you talk about chakras a little bit.
Mhm.
So, well, I guess the whole section was about chakras, but can you explain what chakras are for people who
Yeah.
don't know or
Yes.
unfamiliar with that?
Yes. So chakras are energy centers within the body. And we have 7 chakras. So there's one, and traditionally there are different modalities that speak of more, but I tend to stick with this basic 7. So there is a root chakra at the base of your spine. There is your sacral chakra that's right below your belly button and your womb space. For those of us who are females, your solar plexus, which is at the kind of the midsection area underneath your rib cage, your heart chakra, which is at the center of the chest, throat chakra in your throat, your third eye, which is kind of up in your kind of area between your eyebrows, forehead area, and then your crown chakra, which is at the top of your head. So those are the basic chakras. And each of those chakras is, I call it like an energy portal. It is an energy portal, a portal that you can utilize to basically tap into different aspects of yourself and your life. So when we're aligning energy or clearing energy, these are the sort of the energy hubs that we work with because they oversee your different systems and different aspects of you. But the way that I like to use them and the way that I like to, that I shared in the book for people to tap into them is when I was going through my awakening and my healing journey, I would spend time in these chakras and allow the chakras and the energy to essentially speak to me, right? So you can literally use your intuition just to sort of visualize and ask to see, like, what is the state of my chakras? Or you can even scan your body and say, where am I feeling heaviness? And the closest place to where you're feeling that heaviness is the chakra to work with, right? And those chakras, like I said, they correspond with different things. So I'll just use the heart chakra, for example. Right. Let's say that I'm feeling some heaviness in my chest, or a lot of us, like, we tend to like hunch
Hunch,
over,
yes.
right? Like we're protecting ourselves. It's
Mhm.
because our heart chakra needs healing or opening, right? Or we're carrying some sort of heaviness there. And oftentimes it comes back to self-love, right? It comes back to, okay, I can trust myself. I love myself. I can let this go. I'm no longer afraid of being, it's like we open ourselves back up again. But what I would do is meditation and visualization. And my intuition would literally, through the power of these chakras, give me so many insights and answers. And one easy way, I was actually just about to do a reel on this. I recorded it a couple days ago. One easy way that you can even heal and align your own chakras, there's many things that you can do, but even through the power of your mind and visualization, you can imagine, let's say that you tune into your chakra and your heart chakra is supposed to be green, but instead of green, you see like maybe some darkness or some gray, or maybe it's not spinning, maybe it's really still or it's really slow. In their full capacity, we want to see the chakras rotating in a clockwise fashion and in their full color. So you can even imagine that you are, again, using that breath, letting go of that dark, negative energy. You can actually see it leaving your body, and then visualize that chakra turning up in its color. So it's getting brighter, it's getting more vibrant, it's getting more colorful, and then you start to see the chakra spinning. That's one powerful way. Our imagination, our mind is so powerful. We can heal ourselves literally just through the power of our belief and our visualization and our imagination. You don't have to be an energy healer or a Reiki master to do that. So that's one thing. I was just actually sharing that with clients actually the other day as well. Very, very powerful. Very powerful.
It's a great explanation. And I had another like epiphany moment as you were talking, because I've realized the past few days I've been waking up with like I've been sleeping like this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
usually that's not how I sleep. I usually like I fall asleep like corpse pose, kind of just like laying flat.
Yes.
And I wake
Yes.
up like this. And I've been
Spend
like,
some
what is going
time.
on? Mm-hmm.
Spend some time in that heart chakra and explore. It will speak to you. It will tell you. You will know, and do that visualization as well. That'll be really helpful
Mm-hmm.
too. But I would say the number one thing, right? The heart chakra is about love, and self-love is always at the root of every kind of love that we may need
Yeah,
to heal. So yeah, sounds like
so true.
some
Oh boy, you are
powerful.
throwing me all kinds of things today. And so, and this, I might be like thinking too much into this. So when you say counter or clockwise,
Mhm.
so is it like if I'm visualizing my chakras on
Yeah,
me, is it
yeah.
like I'm looking at myself and it's going clockwise, or is it like clockwise, like,
So it depends on how you're seeing it, right? So like if you're seeing it within your body, it would be the clockwise within your body, but some people actually see it like it's on a screen, right? And then
mm-hmm,
you would actually see it because so for example, you can do remote Reiki, and you can do like different NLP, visualization practices where it's almost like you're seeing yourself on a screen. So if you're seeing it on a screen, it's still going to be clockwise, right? In that way. But if
mm-hmm.
you're seeing it if your visualization or your intuition is taking you to actually see it within yourself, then you'd want to see it going clockwise within yourself. So
Okay.
that is a great question. I have never been asked that
Mm-hmm.
before.
Okay, because
That's
I
never.
heard
So
that
when,
a long
yeah,
time ago too.
yeah, yeah. So I guess that's a good practice for everybody to kind of like when you visualize your chakra, do you see it within yourself or do you see it, outside of yourself? I think
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be different every time you do it as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Huh, yeah, that's a good insight there too. Just I guess the point that every time we do practices like this, like it comes up differently, and there's
Comes
not
up
like only
different.
one way to go about it.
Absolutely. There isn't. That's the thing is like, and I even say this in the book about meditation, your practice, your rules. And I think it's that way for everything. There are some people who are very much about specific traditions. And I think that some people are on a path like that. But, I don't think we need to hold ourselves to some standard because everything that's ever been written or taught, right? It's all somebody's perception. It's all somebody's experience and their belief or their perception on how it should be. So I think practice and experience and really being mindful and conscious of what works for you is the best way to do it. I find
Mhm.
myself, I'm so in astrology, I'm an Aquarius, right? And Aquarius likes to kind of go outside the box and make their own systems and their own ways of doing things. So I find I'm always like sort of melding things or bringing things together. And I had a lot of fear about that, especially when I first started teaching. I was like, well, what if somebody else does it different and they heard it and, that's the right way? There is no right way. There is when you share, when you step up to be a teacher, you step up to lead, we're always sharing from our own perception. I don't know. I mean, if you can tell me or point me to the person who has all the answers, please do. But I don't know a single human who has all the answers to how this whole journey is supposed to go and how we're supposed to do all these things. So we're all just figuring it out and we can only
Yeah,
do what works best for us.
that's so true. Yeah,
hmm
everyone's just kind of winging it, really.
Yes, yes, yes. Winging it and like rediscovering ourselves and, kind of remembering. I truly believe that we, when we came here, right, when we were one with source energy and we came here, like we knew it all. Now we're just on this journey to like remembering how to be one, how to access all of the wisdom and all of the love and all that we innately have inside of us. So it really is just a process of remembering and unpacking and getting rid of all the conditioning and all the things that people told us to be and told us to believe and told us how to do it. So yeah, I think the spiritual journey is one of like authenticity and giving yourself permission to be who you are.
Ooh, that
That's
hits
purpose.
me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately because, purpose, we all think about life purpose as something different. And I think life purpose, I certainly do think that all of us have some sort of a role that we are here to play and a gift that we are meant to bring into the world. But above it all, our sole purpose is to fully express like who we are and give our soul the experience that it wanted to have when it said like, hey, I'll come into a human body. Like, let's do this human thing. Like, well, what is that experience? What did that soul, what did your soul want to learn and give and evolve, how to evolve and experience? And it's like, that's the journey for all of us, which is why I love astrology so much, because it can provide us with so much insight into how to do that, like into who we are. And rather than just having to go on this crazy journey to try to figure it out, it at least can point us in the right direction.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
let's shift to that then. So what got
Okay.
you into astrology?
Exactly that, being on my spiritual journey. And like I talked about, right, the seed that, I uprooted myself and I planted this seed and I'm like, okay, I am brand new. I'm a baby. Like, who am I? Right? Like, who am I? And was going through the dark night of the soul. And my Reiki teacher actually said, why don't you go get an astrology reading? And she was talking about like having this reading. And so I was like, well, I'll go have an astrology reading and see. And that woman, like in the 1 hour we had together, I learned more. It wasn't like I was learning who I was, but it was like she was telling me so many things that I had felt were true, but I had maybe rejected, or I was like, oh no, that's not okay. Or like I learned who I was during that session. And then after that, I just went all in on trying to like really use astrology to help recreate myself and find myself. And then after that, using it to help guide other people on their journeys of awakening and purpose and love and abundance and all the beautiful things that we can use astrology for. But essentially, it came from the dark night of the soul and not knowing what else to do to try to figure out who I was and where to go from there.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's just like, I'll just try, all these things seem to have not been giving me the answers I'm looking for. So I'll just try this next thing.
Exactly, exactly. And I think two things happened, right? I think the number one thing is like an openness. Like I was so open. I was like, okay, whatever, like spirit, whatever the universe wants to bring me, bring it on. And I was like, whatever I would find, I would go all in. Like there was no like, oh, I'll dabble. I was just like, go all in, especially if it felt aligned. And so the universe just kept gifting me with like these tools like astrology and meditation and Reiki and these teachers. And it was just like, wow. So that's another piece of advice I would give to people who are going through an awakening is like, don't dilly-dally, don't dabble, like just like be in it and be open and be curious, just like you are today, Carolyn. Like just like be open and like be willing to face your fears. I had a lot of fear. I was raised Catholic, and so like all these like different modalities, I was like terrified. Meditation, I was like okay with, but as soon as it got to like energy healing and astrology and like pendulum, like I have a pendulum right here, like pendulums and tarot cards and all these things, and I was like, oh my God, am I going to go to hell? Like, I don't know. But you got to let go of that conditioning and you got to trust the process, and you will be shown exactly the path for you
Mm-hmm.
and the right people and the right tools and you'll hear the right thing. Like you said, the synchronicities. It's one of the coolest things about the spiritual journey is like you really start to notice those synchronicities.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it can be like mind-boggling. Like just
Yeah.
throughout this, like I'll like get it's like a hit of like, okay, don't forget what she said. Like take
Hmm.
that and
Yes.
process it and implement it. And it's just like sometimes it's a lot. It's
It's a
just like
lot.
this is
It's a lot.
coming at me from different directions,
I
like multiple days in a row now. Like, oh my
I remember
God.
that too. And again, had a conversation with my Reiki teacher, my mentor, and I was like, all these things, like it's too much. Like I would sit down in a meditation, it would be like all these visions and all these like insights, and like it was just crazy. And lessons, like it was just one, and I say lessons like life, hard life things, just like one thing after another. And I just kept feeling so difficult. And I was like, how do I make this stop? She's like, well, you can talk to your guides and ask them. It's like turning down a faucet, like ask them if they can turn it down a little bit. And it kind of worked, but in my heart, like I just wanted to go all in. I just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and just be like, all right, let's do this spiritual awakening thing. So it can feel overwhelming, but I will say this, like the more you're willing to go all in and the faster it comes, the faster, I don't want to say you'll get through it, but like the faster you'll be on the other side. Like you can't go around it with this spiritual awakening thing, this spiritual journey. Like you just gotta go through it. There's no way around it. I tried that for a while too. Like I had left the corporate world, traveled for 2 years, full-time coaching, like healing, like doing all the things. And then I kind of got scared. And I was like, financially, I was in a difficult, and I talk about this in the book as well. Financially, I was in a difficult place. I like was having these feelings of like, I feel like I don't connect to anybody. Like I felt so isolated and I felt like I was a weird person, like the woo-woo person. And I felt like I couldn't relate to anybody. So it wasn't a conscious thing at the time, but that fear of being isolated and being alone and like I was weird and all that, I went back into like the normal world. So I went back into the corporate world and like tried to do like normal people things instead of just being this spiritual woo-woo person. But you know what? The universe didn't leave me alone. It was like, you're still going to have to do these lessons. You're just going to do it in a different format. Like it didn't really work. You can't, once you open your eyes and once you like open that door to, I want to awaken and it's just our time and we just have to go through it. We just have to go through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that I'm feeling it. That's so true. Because like there's just no way around it. And that can feel sometimes discouraging, but I guess like you said, you can't backtrack, right? So like once you're going, it's the closer
Yeah.
you get to going through it all the way.
Yes. Yes. And I look at it as we have to look at this through our soul. Like everything in life, we have to look at it through the perspective of our soul, right? And our soul wants growth. It wants evolution. It wants to serve and give and love and oneness. So as difficult as the spiritual journey and the spiritual awakening process is, you know that song, like, this is what you came for? Like, there's that song, this is what you came for. It's like that. It's like, that is what your soul came for. Like, your soul literally came for that process of transformation. And what's on the other side, in that you will then be able to give to others and share that wisdom, share that light, share that love, share your ability to heal people in whatever way you choose to do it. But that is what your soul came here to do. To be the real you.
Yeah. And would you say it will find ways for you to figure that out if you're
We're
not
open
finding
to,
it out on your own?
oh yes, absolutely. We will always be guided. We will always be redirected. And so the thing of it is like the cool thing about the spiritual journey is like once you open to the synchronicities and the signs, the universe doesn't have to work as hard to get your attention sometimes, right? Like oftentimes, like when the divorce happens or the losing your job or, whatever it is, like life event happens, it's literally the universe being like, hey, like, pay attention. Like I tried other ways, but you weren't listening. Like, all right, like I'm going to give this. So it's like, if we start to open our eyes and just pay attention to how we're being guided, or even better, like sit down in a meditative practice and converse with spirit or God every single day and ask for guidance, right? Ask for guidance. And it's not all just the universe telling us what to do. It's also like we're a co-creator. We get to create what we want. So that's another part of like the spiritual awakening process, is letting go of who you think you have to be or think you need to be. And like for the first time, tuning into what do I actually desire? Because on the path to your true desires is when you will like fully grow into your fullest potential, right? When you go after like, I decided I wanted to be a coach and I wanted to help other people. Well, the journey of that has been a tremendous growth, right? Like I've always wanted like amazing partnership in my life. The journey to that has been amazing growth. So like allow yourself. What I thought I wanted was this corporate career and a nice car and a, fancy handbag, and woke up one day and was basically like suffocated by all those things in my life. And I was like, no, this is not it. I've got to figure out what I really want. And on that path to those desires is when I really became who I was, who I am, who who I'm meant to be, who I
Mhm.
really am in my soul.
Yeah.
Like exposes your soul, and you live from your soul as opposed to just from your conditioned mind.
Mhm. Yeah. That's a good quote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like your ascended self.
Your
That's
ascended
what you
self.
call it. Yeah.
Exactly. You live as your ascended self. That is what happens is like when we get rid of, because that's so much of the spiritual awakening, is letting go of all the things that you were told from the time you were a little baby that you should be or that you should want, right? You should want this. You should want this. You should be like this. This is normal. You go to school. This is what we do. We, get in these lines and you study these subjects, and, we go even like art class is like, okay, art, like this is like paint in the lines. Like we're told who to be and how to do everything in our lives. And it's like, we go through spiritual awakening. And the most difficult part is nobody can tell us how to do it. But the most beautiful part is we're finally able to become who we were fully, like our full self, our ascended self, our authentic self.
Mhm.
So in the confusion and the feeling lost is something very beautiful. And that's a chance to create yourself to who you were meant to be and who you want to be.
That's so powerful. And would you
Mhm.
like, I guess one way maybe someone could use all these points you're making is to like use that meditative state to connect to that version of
Yes.
them
Yes.
and make
Yes.
that like you might be over here, your ascended self might be over here, but like
Yes.
you're the same. You just have to like get together.
You just,
If you're listening only, I'm like doing hand motions, but you have to connect each thing together.
yes, absolutely. And the power of visualization is so amazing. So, a lot of people talk about like vision boards and things like that. And I think that's really beautiful. So, one way to connect to your ascended self would be to like make a vision board. Like, what do you want in your life? Right? Like, I have this beautiful beach. I'm sure a picture like this has been on my vision board at some point. I'm actually living in Colombia right now. So, this is not real, but if I look right out there, there's a beach that looks a lot like that. So, what I encourage clients to do is like, okay, create that vision board of your ideal life. But the most important part is asking yourself, what will I feel and who will I be when I manifest that? Like, what is that version of you that you think you will be or what you will feel when that becomes your reality? And then align with her. That's the ascended life. That's the ascended self, is being that, becoming that, vibrating on that frequency, not waiting until you get to live by the beach or you have the $1 million or you have the guy of your dreams or whatever it is, or you're, the top, Reiki master in the world or whatever it is, like whatever your dream is. Don't wait for that to become that person. Become that person. Feel, because vibration is so important. The emotions are the most important part. Feel those emotions that you think you'll feel then, now, and that will get you there. Another really great activity that you can do in terms of the ascended life and manifestation and becoming your highest self is make a list. Ask yourself this question: what is most important for me to be or feel? What is most important for me to be or feel? And so, like, for example, what is most important for me to feel? Love, connection, wisdom, creativity, fun, whatever it is. Make that list. Those are your values. And spend time every day connecting with the vibration, connecting with the mindset, visualizing yourself walking in those values. Show up in life in those values. That will help you become your ascended self so fast. Like that is very, very powerful. You can create affirmations around it. And there's a whole process I take people through in the book and through some of the coaching programs I have. But that is one of the purest ways that you can really start to become and align with that version of you.
Those are great tips. Oh my gosh, I got like really excited when as you were saying that. I'm so happy we got to talk because I
Thanks.
looked at the time, like we've already been talking for like an hour almost. That flew, that like
It sure
boggles my
did.
mind.
Sure did.
So I guess to wrap this up, so Kesley wrote a book called The Ascended Life. It
Mhm,
was a wonderful book. I loved how you had the like the homework, like you explained all the
mhm,
things, right? You said the
mhm,
story and then had the prompts at the
mhm,
end to really put it all together and help the
mhm,
reader understand, you know,
mhm.
what they had just read and a way to implement it
Yeah.
into their life, with like actually what they're dealing with personally.
Yes.
And that really helped me out as I read the book. So I love that. So thank you. I'm so
Good.
excited that
Yeah.
it's finally out.
Me too. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that because that was the whole vision was there's a million books that I have that just sit on the shelf and they're just a read and they maybe share someone's story or tell you how to do something, but it's like I think there's something special when you actually have like the work to integrate. And that's the goal of the Ascended Life is to have help people go from, the first you read it, the introduction of the book is about my spiritual awakening and waking up in Costa Rica and being like wanting to crawl out of my own skin and the thoughts that I had and the self-defeat and the fear and all these things, like taking people from there, if that's where they start, all the way through this process where if you implement these tools and these teaching and these journal prompts and activities, by the end, you will be creating your whole ascended life plan and living that and creating that and becoming a creator as opposed to what we often feel right in life is like we're the victim and life is happening to us. Life is happening through us. Life is happening for us, not to us. And that's the process that we go through in the book through the activities and the integration work.
Thank you so much. Where
Thank
can
you.
people purchase the book from?
Yes. They can either get it on my website, which is life.kesleytweed.com, or it's also available on Amazon. So the hard copy is available on Amazon, and the life.kesleytweed.com actually has a lot of special bonuses. So you can get the ebook there, you can get the audiobook, and there's a ton of bonuses that you can get. There's a manifestation workshop, there is basically a whole kind of process and path that explains spiritual ascension and all the different steps that we go through. There's all kinds of journal prompts, there's meditations, there's all kinds of different things that are all part of the package for the book. And it's really affordable. It's just $4.44. So yeah, definitely go check it out. And I would love for people to connect with me on Instagram too. I'm always available to, answer questions and kind of help people through the journey. And that's Kesley Spirit Guide
Great.
on
I'll add that
Instagram.
to the show notes and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. And like, what is the time over there? Like,
Yeah,
I have no idea.
actually, what's the best part about being in Colombia? We're in Cartagena, Colombia right now. It is about 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm on Central Time. So US.
Oh,
I'm not sure where you're
oh wow.
located,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Okay.
where
That's
are
so
you
cool.
located,
Yeah, Central
Carolyn?
too.
Central Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the easiest things about like still doing a lot of clients and things like that are in the US, so it makes it
Hmm.
very easy, which is one of the reasons why we chose South America.
Yeah, that's so
We
cool.
were
Like I
looking
didn't
at we were
even
looking at
register that.
Africa, but we're like, that's number one. We have almost a 2-year-old, and she doesn't do well on plane rides over 4 hours. And number two, it's much easier with the time zones. So, and the
Yeah.
people here, we're excited. We are working on launching a nonprofit and starting to do some outreach work here. So it's like
Oh,
some
that's
really
so
beautiful things
exciting.
that have been happening while we're here. So we're very grateful for our time. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, and yeah, definitely follow her on Instagram and check out her website to just yeah, to get in touch with her and also to get updates on that to the nonprofit.
Yes. Some big things to come. We are so
That's so
excited.
exciting.
I'm so
Thank you
excited.
so much.
Thank you, Carolyn.
All right, guys, thanks for listening in. I hope you have a great rest of your day.